Let's go live right now to Scarborough. This is where Ontario and Quebec Provincial Police, they're announcing the results of a joint operation called Project Sharp.
Within Ontario and across Turtle Island. For media watching, information is available in English and French on opp.ca/news. There will be 3 individuals with formal remarks. First will be OPP Deputy Commissioner Marty Kearns, followed by Sûreté du Québec Deputy Benoit Dubé, and then OPP Detective Inspector Sean Chatland. Deputy Kearns, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sergeant. Good morning. Thank you to everyone joining us to recognize the outstanding investigative efforts showcased in today's important announcement. Project Sharp is a joint forces operation consisting of 11 enforcement services in Ontario and Quebec. Detective Inspector Sean Chatland from our Criminal Investigation Branch will provide additional details shortly about the investigation. The success of this complex, multi-jurisdictional criminal investigation is a direct result of the collective efforts of the individuals involved, some of whom are represented in this room today. There can be no mistake that fraud harms people in our communities. Last year, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, or the CAFC, received fraud reports totaling a staggering $554 million. In Project Sharp, the investigative team identified a criminal organization responsible for more than $2.2 million in reported losses Canada-wide since February of 2022. The real cost is probably several times that amount, since it is estimated that only 5 to 10% of victims report the fraud to the CAFC or the police. The victims in this case were contacted by members of an organized crime group who initiated a fraud commonly known as the emergency grandparent scam. This organized criminal group targeted seniors with landlines, exploiting their emotions. Victims were led to believe they were speaking with a distressed loved one who urgently required funds for bail, legal fees, or other fictitious expenses. Victims were coerced through manipulative tactics to make payments and were further isolated by the threat of a gag order to silence any discussion of the situation. In some cases, the victims were aggressively threatened if they did not agree to pay the amount. Furthermore, several victims experienced multiple instances of re-victimization, and more than a dozen suffered additional financial loss. The funds lost were significant, as they represented the life savings of many of these individuals. This not only affects their future plans, but also puts them into a state of uncertainty with increased stress. This crime goes beyond just financial distress. It causes substantial emotional suffering as well. Victims who have been defrauded often struggle with shame and humiliation, which can lead to significant emotional, psychological, and physical damage. When a criminal impersonates a loved one or an authority figure with violent messaging and manipulation, victims face a sense of betrayal and trauma. Their sense of trust is shattered, which is often a contributing factor for frauds being underreported. As fraud continues to present a significant risk to our community members, combating fraud remains a paramount focus for the OPP and for our partners. In addition to investigating fraud, the OPP continues to allocate resources towards disruption and prevention efforts by working very closely with financial institutions, including the Canadian Bankers Association, FinTrack, and other stakeholders to prevent victimization. We want to remind the public that education and awareness are the best form of fraud prevention. Resources are available on the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre website at antifraudcentre.ca. If you or someone you know suspects they've been a victim of a fraud, contact your local police service and the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre through the fraud reporting system, even if a financial loss did not occur. Once again, I am grateful to all our partners throughout the province and across the country, and in particular to Deputy Director General Benoit Dubé of the Sûreté du Québec for all their continued collaboration in Project Sharp and in support of overall public safety. Today, our provinces are safer because of these collective efforts. Thank you.
Bonjour tout le monde. Good morning, everyone. I am Deputy Director General Benoit Dubé of the Sûreté du Québec. First of all, I would like to thank my colleagues for their close cooperation throughout the Project SHARP. We are proud to have contributed, along with our partners from Ontario and Quebec, to the dismantling of this organized crime group specialized in fraud that has claimed numerous victims across the country. In Quebec, as in the rest of Canada, there has been a significant increase in the reporting of economic and financial crime over the last 5 years. It is important to understand that these crimes can have major impact on victims, not only financially, but also emotionally and sometimes even physically. The result of the Project SHARP showed that by working together, law enforcement agencies can effectively combat this type of transnational criminal activity carried out by organized crime groups. Added to the challenge of the interprovincial and even international aspect of these fraud is the sophistication of the scam. The availability of technology increase the capacity of criminal network and facilitate the commission of these crimes. However, we are confident in our ability to investigate them and bring the suspect to justice. In fact, in view of the growing importance of this type of investigation, the Quebec Provincial Police strengthened its capacity to act a year ago by creating the Financial Crime and Cybercrime Investigation Division, which bring together specialized units in these fields. This new structure enables us to improve our collaboration with national and international partners. Fighting frauds requires a global approach, and cooperation is essential to our success. That's why we need to work closely with all organizations that are concerned by these crimes that can help prevent them, whether they are public, such as healthcare provider, or private, such as financial institution. Combining law enforcement effort with prevention and education initiative is also essential to prevent further victimization. In this regard, I'd like to take this opportunity to remind people that it is crucial to resist to the pressure to act quickly when receiving a call or a message asking for money or personal information, and to take the time to verify the validity of the story being presented to you. There are several sources of information that can help you detect these fraud attempts. If you or someone you know is a victim of fraud, it's important to report it to your local police department. Finally, I'd like to express again my sincere appreciation to my colleagues for their collaboration in achieving our common mission, and to remind those to fraudsters network that we will spare no effort to stop the unacceptable abuse they commit and to prevent others from becoming victims. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. I'm Detective Inspector Sean Chatlin with the OPP's Criminal Investigations Branch. Before I get into the investigative details of Project SHARP, I urge everyone listening to think of the hundreds and likely thousands of victims in this case. Though the numbers I will share are staggering, the impact on each of these victims is more so. They are more than a number. They represent people in our lives who were vulnerable to predators. If you follow these proceedings, you will understand why police officers from across the country were motivated to take action. This investigation is far more than fraud. This organized crime group affected victims right across Canada in a manner that will be both mentally and financially life-altering for many. We urge you to share this information with loved ones and the community at large in the hopes that we can learn from these events and prevent further victimization. I would like to remind the public that legitimate police officers will never come to your house or call you demanding money. Project Sharp began in September of 2022 when the OPP's Anti-Racket Branch and Serious Fraud Office initiated an intelligence probe into an organized crime group involved in fraud. By February of 2023, the probe was formalized as a joint forces operation consisting of police services across Ontario and Quebec, led by the OPP's Criminal Investigation Branch. This organized crime group demonstrated a deliberate and methodical approach in exploiting victims. They operated out of Ontario and Quebec, utilizing emergency grandparent scams on victims across Canada. They would impersonate police officers, judges, lawyers, and loved ones, preying on grandparents who believed they were trying to help family members in trouble. They undermined our entire criminal justice system. They targeted people with landline telephones, and in most instances, they utilized money mules or couriers to collect large amounts of money from the victims. Between January 22nd and April 8th, 2024, 126 victims lost over $700,000. Sadly, 15 of these victims endured repeated victimization and lost an additional $200,000 to this group. The locations of these victims spanned across the country, with the majority living here in Ontario. However, I'm happy to say that our investigators collaborated closely with both financial institutions and the Canadian Bankers Association to present and recover more than $500,000 in losses from other victims. On April 10th, 2024, between April 10th, 2024 and April 16th, 2024, as a part of Project Sharp, police officers from across Ontario and Quebec arrested 14 individuals in the Montreal area and laid 56 criminal charges. Charges include involvement in organized crime groups, extortion, impersonating a police officer, and fraud. Their names, charges, and next court dates will be available to the media at the conclusion of this media event. Of the 14 charged, 4 remain in custody. We will hold these offenders accountable for their release conditions by engaging in bail compliance checks. Our goal is to help reduce crime and support victims while collaborating with our partner agencies to improve public safety. And our job is not done. This important investigation remains ongoing. We encourage any victims to come forward and report incidents to their local police and to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. I want to thank the dedicated officers and civilian team members from the police services involved in this intricate fraud investigation. I am also grateful to each of our many policing partners for their support. Your unwavering commitment to this multi-jurisdictional collaboration highlights the critical role that such cooperation plays in achieving success. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. Equich.
This concludes the formal portion of this media conference. At this time, members of the media are invited to ask questions to our panelists. Please include your name and media outlet in your question. Does anyone have any questions? Avez-vous des questions?
Bonjour, Jérémy Bergeron pour Radio-Canada. Est-ce que, M. Dubé, vous êtes le seul qui parle français autour de la table?
Position motion calling for unanimous.
Peut-être vous expliquer un peu le modus operandi de ces...
And we've been listening live from Scarborough, the results of a joint operation. This is called Project Sharp. 56 charges laid. This is involving the grandparent scam. 14 arrested in Montreal. And since January of this year, 126 victims have been identified who lost over $700,000.